The Historical Society of Ottawa acknowledges that as we share these stories from our past, we are on what remains the unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode. This series is a collaboration between the Historical Society of Ottawa and Rogers TV. I'm Ben Weiss. I'm with the Historical Society of Ottawa, where we've been telling Ottawa's great stories since 1898. If you find Ottawa's history as fascinating as we do, I urge you to check out our website, our monthly speaker series, and follow us on Facebook, and enjoy today's segment.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeff Wang. I came to Canada as a first generation immigrant, and today as president of the Chinese Writers Association. Today I would like to talk something important for us and for the Canadians as well, because this piece of the history is very easy to be forgotten or neglected, but this is the Chinese community history in Ottawa, and it is history for everybody actually in Canada. So I'd like to take a journey today actually with me. It's my journey. It's a story about literature, about home, about what it really means actually to leave and to restart. When I was a child, I loved literature. I loved my Chinese classes, especially writing essays. My real writing actually started when I was a graduate student at Oxford in the UK. And as many international students, like actually between the classes, I feel actually lonely, so I started to miss my home and miss my family and something like that. In our culture, whenever we travel somewhere else, we always carry our home actually. And there's a very famous actually poem by Meng Jiao in the Tang Dynasty. It says like a loving mom. A loving mom's head threads a needle, sewing clothes for her traveling son. Every stitch is with worries. Who says a child's heart can even repay mom's love? So I guess you can feel that the same too actually, the bond between the home and the traveler. So this is why actually the Chinese writers always like to write about their hometowns. It's not just a theme, it's about a deep emotional pull. Why do people actually leave their hometowns? Is it always for better life? But the Chinese has a saying actually, says something like about falling leaves returning to the roots. So in the very beginning, a century ago actually, when the Chinese when the Chinese laborers actually first arrived this land, they don't want really stay here forever. They want to actually come back to China with their earnings in glory. So, but the things can be changed, right? So like the migratory birds, they fly to south in autumn and back in spring. But many of them actually cannot make it. Some of them actually stay elsewhere. some of them actually just die along the way. So this is a sad story. So actually, to me, actually, the migration is always bittersweet. It's a hard decision for us to make, especially for the Chinese, because the Chinese culture actually, we have the very strong ties within the families. Even a daughter marries, actually, she still kept strong connection with her parents' home. So I began to write about this in the Oxford as a student, as a temporary resident. Actually, I write about the student's life, about the life in Britain, something like that. But here in Ottawa, I began to write immigrant life, how a person, how a family settles down in this different country, in this new country, to start their new life. My first actually novel is called Walking Without Shadows. Came from the watching the friends and the neighbors struggle with the language barriers, with their work, with their life, with actually the feeling actually you stay here, but you try to feel actually you are at home, but it is not real home, something like that. My second one is the inheritance of air. So the name of air. So that's describing passing the family and the traditions and the culture generation to generation. But actually by 2015, actually, I felt in my heart actually I should actually look at beyond only the individual stories. I asked myself why I don't write a whole history of the Chinese community in Ottawa. This question led me to write my book, actually, Overseas Chinese in Ottawa since 1892. So I began my research. It's very different from writing fiction. I had to do a lot of reading, site visitings, and interviews. I worked full time, so I just write after hours, use much of my vacation time. So the book was published in 2024, and after a year, I worked with another well-known translator, Ms. Bai Mei-sun, to bring the book into English. At the first, I tried to find the very first person who came to Ottawa but it's a mission impossible. I couldn't find him. Yeah, no evidence at all. But I did find 5 early families. Surnames are Sam, Ham, Zhou, Wang, and another Wang family. Their family lives spanned about a century years, showing how to build the family lives in Ottawa. At this moment, actually, we are taking this video at Beechwood Cemetery. Many of the Chinese pioneers actually are buried here. And I have actually visited this cemetery actually many times for get information and materials. I also actually find the oldest Chinese grave actually in Capitol. There's one particular grave, the tombstone, just one line, said Tom Chu, China, 1873 to 1948. Nobody knows who he was no census record, no document, just that long marker actually in the open field. His grave actually was set 100 meters from the main graveyard. But actually, as the time goes by, now actually the cemetery actually expanded actually larger and larger. The new graves actually grew to his grave, to Tom's grave actually closer and closer. So this is a symbolic actually, you can see actually. So when the time goes by, the Chinese will no longer be the separate isolated part, but it will be in a whole actually. Yeah, I'm really talking about the early Chinese life, the life of early Chinese immigrant was really harsh. In 1885, the Canada government actually issued a Chinese Immigration Act that was known as a head tax. At the beginning, actually, it charged every Chinese person $50, and then 100, and then in 1903, they charged about 500. That's about actually 2 years wages of a regular actually worker. That's a lot. Then in 1923, the infamous actually Chinese Exclusion Act was in force. That act really actually torn the Chinese family apart. So the husband couldn't actually bring their wives here, and the parents cannot bring their children here. The husband cannot bring the wives here. George Lamb married a young Chinese woman back in China, and he had to actually return to Ottawa alone. So his bride never had a chance to set her foot on Canadian soil. When George was able to revisit his hometown, he could only stand in front of his wife's grave, sadly. That's not an isolated case. That law lasted about 24 years until actually 1947. The act also restricted the jobs Chinese could take. They could really only work on something like the laundries and the small restaurant. But the Chinese always valued the education to their children. They also actually insisted that their children learn Chinese languages. But many Chinese young men could never have the chance to marry, so they have to work with very little wages and died without the care of the family. So fortunately, actually, the Chinese community united and put resources to buy some cemetery plots for these guys, so they can buried with dignity. They are right here actually in this Beechwood cemetery. They have a designated area to rest forever. In 2006, the government of Canada formally issued the apology to the head tax policy. So it's too late for those early immigrants who already passed away, but it's important for their descendants. It's a very good recognition to them. Many of them actually wept openly, tears in their eyes. It told us, your stories are remembered. Your sacrifices are also remembered. The Chinese community now is thriving. We can see the Chinese community landmarks here right now, like the Chinese Grand Mission and the Chinese Cultural Center, as well as many organizations also actually served the immigrant, not only the Chinese. For example, in 1970s, the Chinese, the Ottawa Chinese Service Center helped the Vietnamese refugees actually with the support of the Canada government. So this is also show actually, so all ethics should be united, help each other. So when I look back from Tom Chu's isolated grave to the grand standing tall Chinatown Archway, I feel actually something changed. So from the isolation to the integration. This is not just a story about the Chinese immigrants, but also about the migration of the everywhere in the world. So I believe this is the bridge the literature can build. So between the past and future, and between the people, and between the culture. When I go through the Chinatown Archway, I can feel how powerful it is. The history is not just about the past. It's about us here and now. Thank you.